assuming that you haven't already torn up this segment to use as toilet paper after seeing the heading, I would like to welcome you to Ditzy's crash course in not being a butt. Now, I know that this isn't as thrilling as learning to build a blunderbuss from toilet paper rolls, but if you bear with me for a moment, I'll reward you with the gift of manners. And I'll tell you a dirty joke. Part 1. Why do manners matter? We've grown up in post-apocalyptia, or at least most of you have, which means you were taught skills that were more immediately useful for survival. Even I've left this chapter slightly later in the book to make way for more vital lessons. But the problem with putting off learning manners is that it makes violence and anger a much easier option, and it will get so easy that eventually you might not even consider diplomacy and friendship to be an option at all, and that fills me with sadness. Part 2. The most basic rule. We're going to start off with the most basic level of manners, one that a surprising number of ponies have not been able to grasp yet, and that is not murdering your fellow equine on sight. This is a difficult task for many ponies still, so I'm going to go through a step-by-step guide on the subject. Step 1. You're minding your own business, drinking the recycled urine we taught you to make in the previous chapter. Step 2. Looking up, you see in the distance a shape that might resemble your fellow equine. Step 3. You confirm with a careful analysis that this is indeed your fellow equine. Step 4. And now this is the tricky part, kids. Don't murder. Now, assuming you aren't cheating, you've taken the first step to good manners. Good job! Part 3. Basic equine decency. Now, to be fair, there are several ponies who struggled with this task long before the war started, but as we've wandered ever closer into the shadows of conflict, there are more and more ponies that devolved into total buttheads. Now, we need to focus on basic equine decency first, and the first thing to go when the war started, our love, respect, and friendships crumbled away until many of us, most of us, could not look our fellow equines in the eye. First, it was the zebras, of course. They were the enemy, and anything less than utter contempt for them would result in a white feather pinned on your door. Every pony in town would know that you were a zebra sympathizer, a coward. You may as well have been considered a zebra yourself. The second prejudice came towards the end of the war, and this is where I need to come clean with you all about something. I'm not perfect. Bullies and philosophers would agree that I am deeply flawed, though their thought processes that led them to that conclusion were wildly different. But I digress. The war led us to some dark places, with more and more Pegasi being deployed to the front lines for their tactical value. As the death count rose, the Pegasi back in Equestria grew their own prejudices against ponies on the ground, and I'm rather ashamed to admit I went through a brief period toward the end of the war where I felt anger as well. Every morning before the crack of dawn, I'd arrive at the post office to start my mail run only to find 3, sometimes 4 or 5 letters from the front line of the Equestrian Air Force insignia plastered on the surface and a weighted metal disc inside. During the earlier days of the war, officials of the Army would deliver news of deaths to ponies personally, but this had become so commonplace it was outsourced to male ponies like myself. So I admit that there was a time when my own laughter was scarce. But we have the chance to be different now. A chance to be better. Basic equine decency can be categorized as not hating the pony next to you because they represent something that you dislike. It's not about showing kindness, it's about not channeling your rage and hatred at them. Part 4. Please and thank you. You'd be surprised how often this is neglected in Equestria. Even the towns, when dealing with shopkeepers, And as the owner of absolutely everything, I've had my share of demanding no-pants ponies who've forgotten how to ask nicely for their armor to be repaired and their guns to be replaced. So here's a hint. When you get on the wrong end of a repair pony who isn't as kind as I am, don't be rude. Say please and thank you and don't be rude, or they might not repair your armor properly, and that would be such a shame. Remember, manners save lives. Part 5. Swears. I don't know why, but ever since society collapsed, every pony's become such a potty mouth. This doesn't have much to do with saving your life in the wasteland, but I must admit, it does make you a far more pleasant pony to be around. Which is important when you get around to making some friends. So, here's Ditzy's lists of swears to avoid and better alternatives. Asshole, butt, shitface, poopy head, cocksucker, your mother. That one was a joke. Don't do that.